Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Tell a Better Story with Performance Measurement. Our guests today are David Gottsman, CountyStat Manager, Wade Holland, CountyStat Analyst, and Dennis Linders, also a CountyStat Analyst, all from Montgomery County in Maryland. This webinar is designed to be interactive and we want your questions. Send them in through GoToWebinar at any point and I'll pose them to our presenters as soon as it's convenient. So speaking of our presenters, let's start today by learning a little more about them. So perhaps starting with Dave, can you tell us a bit about your background and history with Montgomery County?
Certainly. Thanks. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Greetings from Montgomery County, Maryland. I'm the CountyStat Manager. The CountyStat office is part of our offices of the County Executive. We report to the Chief Administrative Officer. And my background is, before coming to Montgomery County, and I've been here just shy of 3 years. For just shy of 5 years, I was in a similar position at the town of North Hempstead, New York, which is in Nassau County. And prior to that, I earned an MPA at New York University's Wagner Graduate School of Public Service, where I was introduced to this whole area of performance measurement and management.
Hi, I'm Wade Holland. I'm a CountyStat Analyst. I've mainly been here about 2 years now, and I mainly focus on our public safety department, so police and fire, and also workforce analytics, so trying to figure out the relationships between workforce availability when people are at work and overtime.
And my name is Dennis Linders. I'm also a CountyStat Analyst. My background is, before this, I worked with the federal government and also at the World Bank, and joined Montgomery County about a year ago, and I'm also a part-time PhD student at the University of Maryland in information science.
Great, thanks very much, gentlemen. So with that, let's get on to today's presentation.
So the way we've broken it out is we're going to give you some overview of the CountyStat initiative or CountyStat program here in Montgomery County, and then we're going to mix in a demo, have some discussion, and obviously at the end we'll give you, the audience, an opportunity for some question and answer time as well. So CountyStat is our performance measurement and management program here, as I mentioned before. Just by way of introduction, Montgomery County, if you're not familiar with it, is a first-ring suburb of Washington, D.C. We have just over 1 million people. In fact, about within the last 2 years or so, demographically, the big shifts that we've experienced are just that we've tipped over 1 million people. And also, interestingly, we also tipped into a majority-minority population in terms of our demographics. And we also do a lot of work with our senior initiatives, and in studying our demographics, we recognize that that segment is our fastest growing population here. But essentially, what our mission is to develop, report, and monitor the performance measures for our departments. We have 21 principal departments within the executive branch, and like all of you in local government know, that ranges from libraries to fire departments to internal-facing departments such as finance and technology services. So it runs the entire gamut of local government services, both to internal and external customers. So we create the performance measures, we report out on them, we monitor them, and bring people to the table, so to speak, when there are performance deficiencies to address. You guys want to add anything? So as far as the benefits of using it, so CountyStat's been around here for almost 9 years. Our current county executive, Isaiah Leggett, created the CountyStat office in the model of state of Maryland, city of Baltimore, the classic Martin O'Malley stat model. We are similar in nature. We do have a few kind of technical differences. Our meetings are public and so forth. But what really guides us are our 4 principles: that we require data-driven performance. Not gone are the days where people would just say, "Hey, I'm going to build the next fire station here because I think that's where it belongs." But show me the data, bring the data to the table, and make the case. We exist to also promote strategic governance, and of course to increase government transparency and really change the culture of the county and make it one of accountability. So one of the main reasons that we're sitting here is to demonstrate our new site that we launched in May that's built on the Socrata open performance platform. And the decision was made last year to update the site. We had already been working with Socrata on other fronts. They are our vendor for our open data platform and financial transparency platform. And then when we looked at this product, it was sort of a natural fit. The site that we had prior, the legacy site, was becoming really somewhat dated. It had some limited functionality. You could only look at 2 years of data at a time. It was very hard to do trend analysis, or at least for the public to do trend analysis. And there was a lot of really valuable content in there that was just sort of locked up in PowerPoint format and other screen views that just were not so user-friendly. So it being at the time 2014, it was time to refresh, and that's what took us down this road. Do you guys want to talk about the length of the project and some of the?
Yeah, one of the questions was if this was easier or more difficult than we expected. What we found was that the implementation took a little bit longer than we had anticipated. But the main reason for that was that, as we first started off just kind of moving over these performance dashboards that we had for the individual departments. But once we got more familiarity with all the kind of tools built into the Socrata platform, we saw sort of all these new opportunities that we could use those capabilities. So what we'll do a little bit later is give you a demo of that. But it's everything from looking at our county-wide indicators. So those aren't necessarily performance measures for departments, but just a general sense of how the county is doing. That was something that was sort of locked up in one of these PowerPoints a couple clicks deep on our website, and now it's sort of front and center. To, for instance, taking an old paper-based report that our Department of Housing and Community Affairs will publish every year on sort of this rental survey that they do, and turning that into a much kind of richer interactive dashboard. So we'll kind of give you an overview of those different components.
So as far as the benchmarking, as Dennis alluded to a second ago, one of the things that was on our old site, but again was kind of just locked up and too many clicks deep and not really as front and center as it should be, are these quality of life indicators. When you're in local government, that's what it's about. It's about quality of life. And years ago, when CountyStat was established, there were about 30 communities or other jurisdictions that were identified as benchmark peer jurisdictions that we use, both nationally, and those were selected mainly by factors such as population, proximity to a city, other qualities that made them kind of the Montgomery County of their part of the country, so to speak. And then we also look at a number of local jurisdictions, and that's irrespective of size or population, but just because they're part of the orbit of DC, as well as DC, that when you live in this area, you want to be mindful of comparing yourself to. So, rather than just talk about it, we're going to, show you some of that stuff as well. So now we're moving into what our site is, and you can, people can hit the site directly, or there's a link off the county's homepage as well.
Yeah, and if you want to go to this yourself, it's montgomerycountymd.gov/CountyStat. One of the things you'll notice also, this is part of all the open data initiatives we have in the county. So that's Data Montgomery, sort of general open data sets. Budget Montgomery, where we publish the budget information very kind of open and user-friendly way. And also Spending Montgomery, where you can track all the spending that happens throughout the county. The site, sort of at the very top of this site, it's really geared around the county executive's priority objectives. So that's kind of what you see here. Later on, we'll talk a little bit about these cross-departmental initiatives. That's something new that we're working on. So you'll see some of these are under development. But really our goal is to get this out to the public as soon as possible so we can start to collect feedback and kind of evolve these things in collaboration. And then the old sort of the traditional department level reports that we publish. So I think maybe the best way to demonstrate how this works is I'll jump into the public safety priority objective, and then my colleague Wade, he'll kind of give an overview of this.
And I think what's important to note here, again, just from the way we thought about building this, was in the stat world, as I'm sure everyone out there knows, there are performance measures for departments. But here, as likely elsewhere, every departmental performance measure also aligns with one of these broader priorities of the county or the county executive. So what we did is we made sure that if you're coming at it from the public and your area of interest was in one of these objectives, when, as Dennis just did, when you click one of those yellow boxes, you'll see every single performance measure, departmental performance measure that aligns with that objective. Or perhaps you're coming at it from the angle that you care about the police department or libraries or recreation, so on and so forth. And then you can click on just the department and see the performance measures just for that department. So,
and before we actually just talk about each of these measures and how the site's laid out, I just wanted to explain kind of the legend we use here. You can see the green, reds, and yellows. The values are always compared to the previous fiscal year's values or calendar year, depending on the measure. So that's always year-over-year comparison is not necessarily a goal attached to that value. So all of these priority areas that we have, I think there's 8 total. 8, yeah. Yeah, 8. Each of them have indicators and headline performance measures for each of our departments, and they're all grouped together. So here, of course, we have typical police, fire and rescue, corrections, but also we have liquor control under this area when they go and do their checks on businesses to make sure they're following the laws. And one measure actually from Health and Human Services about youthful offenders. So to give you an idea, give it up here. This one. Yeah, 2 tabs over. So example, one of our indicators, very important in the county, is the pedestrian safety initiative. So we track and benchmark against ourselves nationally and regionally how many pedestrian fatalities we have, and this is coming straight out of federal data from FARS. So you can see in the red we have Montgomery County year over year going back to 2005. The gray top line is the maximum of the national benchmarks, and then the bottom one here is 0, so our lowest numbers, then blue being the median value. So usually we try and compare Montgomery County to the median. We also provide the opportunity through the Socrata platform for any users to go in and download all the data that we've been pulling from these different federal databases. So whatever you're seeing, or whatever we see, the users can see. And the same picture just here, just the regional, so the DC area.
Yeah, so this information used to be stuck in 2 different PowerPoint slides where you couldn't really do any drill down on the information. You couldn't sort of, use that, look at Montgomery County and compare it to some other jurisdictions that you might want to compare it to. Whereas now it's fully interactive, but also anyone from the public or any of our peer jurisdictions, they can just explore the data and then they can play with it themselves. So if they only want to look at how well we're doing versus, let's say, the District of Columbia or Frederick County, they'd be able to do that too with a couple different clicks there.
This is an example of going from an indicator down a level to our headline performance measures. This is from our police departments, very common metric across all police departments. 911 call comes in, how quickly can we get there? So across the county, about 7.26 minutes. Also, we can see over time, as Dave mentioned before, our old dashboard, we can only show current year values versus one prior year. So now we can show, for however much data we have, we try and show it. Then again, we also were able to show, keep scrolling down, whenever we have supporting information for those measures, like for here we show the total amount of 911 calls that are coming in to our emergency communication center. We're able to show that now. And again, users can go in and explore the data and see exactly what we see.
And the supporting measures really, again, they're an opportunity to add context. They're not what we consider headline performance measures because they're generally not outcome driven. They're more likely to be outputs and workload kinds of measures. But when you're coming at it, from the public perspective, which is the approach we tried to take, what does 7.26 minutes mean? How many calls? The next natural question is how many calls and so forth. So we tried to answer those questions through the supporting measures, and the design of every page allows us to show those measures right under the headline performance measure, as long as these different factors contributing and factors restricting, which is a kind of a standard set of information that we provide every year.
Yeah, right now you'll see the information go up to FY14. Right now we're undergoing our FY15 data call, so we'll be updating this as we get that information in.
And just another view, this is fire and rescue, one of the response times. They actually break the county up into 4 different population distribution areas. So the nice thing with the Socrata platform is not only can we upload and show the performance trends, the nice thing with fire, they give us quarterly data here, so you have yearly plus quarterly data. We also can install things like static maps here. So if you're on the page says metropolitan zones and you want to know, well, is that where I live, you can see that map here, as well as supporting data for this measure as well. All right.
So the transportation area.
Okay. Now we're going to switch over to transportation. So this is just an example of the department page. So this kind of replaced our old Word templates that, the data was just locked in that Word template and you had to go print it off online. It was dug in somewhere.
And this dashboard these departmental dashboards that we share with the public are 100% identical to the reports that the county executive uses for his annual performance review with the individual department heads.
And the different thing between you'll see the department side versus the priority objective side, we have these common metrics we use for all of our departments. So we track their overtime and audits, injuries, if they're doing succession planning, et cetera. So things we can track our departments across and against each other, see if we're improving all together, or if someone's lagging behind.
Or if somebody's doing something really well and intelligently that other departments can learn from. In a government like Montgomery County with 10,000 employees and all these disparate departments, it can feel fairly siloed off. So any opportunity to use this as a tool for cross-departmental learning and collaboration, which we'll talk about collaboration more in a few minutes, but anytime we can use the data to drive some cross-departmental learning is always something that we'll do.
So this is one of the transportation measures. Montgomery County, in addition to the metro buses, we operate our own bus service called Ride On. So one of the measures that is very important to the division chief for Ride On is Ride On complaints and making sure that they can lower the amount of complaints through better service. So not only do we see the trend of overall complaints coming in yearly, but through our 301 system, which is through our open data portal, which is connected to the Socrata platform, we get daily information now, updated daily, about what types of calls are coming into our 301 call center. So you can see if Ride-On calls are going up or down based on service complaints, driver complaints, or miscellaneous. And the beautiful thing is we don't have to touch this because it's updated through open data. It's updating every night.
And this is just beginning, but one of the kind of dream scenarios that we're trying to work towards is that as many of these measures as possible, we just pull straight from the open data platform, and we really just have to configure that once, and it updates whenever the open data set itself updates. So the more that we can do that, the more that we try to do that.
And we do have a very structured, queued up way for that our open data site is growing. So every year we go through a process of rating and ranking data sets. And then what that does is it allows our technology services department to get the right resources in place to build out our open data platform, so we know, what particular data sets are coming next year and the following year and so forth that we will be able to latch onto like this.
So for example, we got our crime data go live a couple months ago, so now we're going to work with police to kind of build out, not only show their metrics about crime closure rate, but now you actually see on the same page where the crimes were at, the volume of crimes in different areas.
Yeah, so one of the main advantages we've seen is bringing in the open data sets. The other thing that we've been working with departments on and where we see a lot of potential is to look at a lot of these annual reports that they publish every year already anyway, but that might just have, a couple of Excel charts or something that they put into some PDF somewhere. And so we have been working with our Department of Housing and Community Affairs. Noticed that they had this annual survey that they publish every year on sort of rental housing statistics. And what they were interested to do is to work with us to see how we can create interactive dashboards around this. So one example, for instance, is I can now look at proximity of the different rental units to Metro, and we can present it in a much more interactive way. And if someone's interested, again, they can go to explore the data and actually just pull in the raw CSV file or Excel file and kind of play with it themselves.
Right. And all the data that's sitting in this rental survey, it's not just a nice to have and nice to show kind of thing. It really helps the department drive policy and recommendations that they're required to make about recommended increases. But from a resident standpoint, you can see, for example, the average, let's say you live in a 3-bedroom apartment in Silver Spring, and you're near Metro, you can see, for example, how common that kind of a unit is across the county, and you can also see the average rental increase. So when your landlord comes to you and says, I'm raising your rent 10%, you can say, but the county average for this kind of an apartment is 3%, and it gives people again that the information they need to arm themselves with for a better what we would call a data-driven discussion.
What I'll do now is I'll go back to the home page. There we go. And then we can talk a little bit about the cross-department initiatives. This is, again, something new that we're working on. Dave, do you want to give an overview a little bit of positive youth?
Well, I'll talk about just cross-department initiatives first and why we did this. So there are a number of efforts across the county that have multiple stakeholders. I alluded before that we can feel fairly siloed off. And when you talk about something like positive youth, you can't have that discussion without certain people at the table. You have to have Health and Human Services, you have to have Recreation, the State's Attorney's Office, the police, so on and so forth. Similar with pedestrian safety. You can't have a productive meeting on that topic without the police at the table, without the DOT at the table from an engineering standpoint, and without the public information officer and his folks at the table too. So these initiatives were a really good opportunity to build performance measures around to make the effort that much more cohesive. That people weren't just saying, well, what is police doing, what is Recreation doing, but how is the initiative going as a whole? So what we created were a number of headline performance measures for the initiative, irrespective of who's doing the work behind it. And what this does is it helps the stakeholders come together and have a common operating picture to gather around, to gauge their progress around, to everybody's kind of looking at the same thing at the same time. And that's really valuable when you have people working across a 500 square mile area. So positive youth was is the initiative that we've done the most work in this, and there are others coming down the pike as well.
Yeah, so just to give you some examples, we track within the county government the amount of positive youth development programming we provide. So you have a measure here. You can see how many participants that these programs collectively have had over time. And then again, we can provide a lot of the same information in more of a table format. So if someone wanted more detail, all that information is available there. And then we can provide various supporting data. So this is kind of a catalog of what those different programs are, the locations, eligibility, and hours, so that someone from the public can look at this page and also identify potential programs that their kid, for instance, might be able to participate in. And then in addition to tracking the performance of the county government, we also look at these broader indicators. And really the end goal of all this programming is to have an influence on these various numbers. So for instance, here I can click on total youth crime events. And this is being pulled directly from our police data system. So again, this is the first year of that initiative, so we don't necessarily have trends over time yet, but that's the benefit of this as we kind of built this out over time. And then we can break that information down by, for instance, the age or the police district, and also the various different types. So really kind of provide that breakdown. And again, if someone wanted to visualize this in a different way, download the underlying data, they're welcome to do so. All you do is just click on Explore the Data, and that's really all that's required there.
And another nice kind of ancillary benefit is I think most people know that scenario where you have a meeting on your positive youth initiative the following day, and you don't have to run around and pull together your slide deck for it. You can literally just call up the CountyStat site. You can hone in on the different things that are interesting to you, and you can see the information and have discussion right off of that, or give a presentation. And when we've shown these sites to nonprofit partners in the county and other stakeholders, they love it. They love it because it helps them inform their operations and gives them, again, it's a common platform for everybody to gather around and talk about issues.
So just to give you an overview, we actually created a dashboard to track the implementation of a lot of these cross-cutting initiatives that we're working on. Definitely the biggest one that we're working on right now is on seniors. And one of the great things there is, one, there's a wealth of information that we can get from Census Bureau, for instance, so that's kind of low-hanging fruit. But also there's a lot of different community groups that are active in this space. And so when we demo the work that we've done today, usually what they'll say is, one, it's very helpful for me to have this information, but wouldn't it also be helpful for the county to have all this information that I have myself? And so what we're trying to do is work with these various groups, bring all this data together from all these different stakeholders, so we all kind of have this common operating picture that we can work on sort of together, so that we're not treating our work as sort of these isolated, sort of discrete efforts, but that we're really all trying to accomplish the same types of goals and work towards that kind of collective impact. One last thing I'll show you is one of the other things we're working on is community dashboards. What we noticed is, it's great to have a lot of these county indicators that track how well the county is doing, but really within Montgomery County there's a tremendous amount of diversity. So it's not, these kind of county-wide statistics don't necessarily tell you of what's happening in all the individual neighborhoods. And so the goal with the community dashboards is really to bring that data down to a much lower level. We started off just breaking it up by the 5 different service regions that we have in the county, but the idea is to really bring this down to the different places and neighborhoods in the county. One area, the 2 areas again that we've been working on the most, and these are sort of the 2 biggest demographic shifts that we see in the county. One is sort of the increasing diversity and the high share of the immigrant population in Montgomery County, and the second again is this very rapid aging that we're seeing in Montgomery County and also nationwide. So for instance, if I click here on language and place of birth information here, let that load for a second. There we go. So here we can kind of see geographic breakdowns. We can see the changes over time, and we can also look at individual foreign language groups. And this is one of those areas where it's great to have the census data, bring that together also with county information, but it's really essential that we also bring in information from, for instance, the adult English literacy program throughout the county. So if we're trying to see if there's, for instance, a gap in coverage, you can't really tell that just looking at the county programs, because there's so many other programs offered by the community that we really have to bring this all together into one place. So I'll jump back to the homepage. Looks like we're doing pretty well on time. I don't know if you have any concluding remarks or just go straight to
back to the PowerPoint for make sure we covered all those.
Cross-cutting dashboards, internal, external feedback.
Yeah, I mean the feedback. I mean we're obviously interested in the feedback of everyone out there, based on what you saw as we were driving through. The feedback internally has been very positive. A lot of the departments are grateful to have more historical data that, again, we always kind of had, that it was locked up. People out in the community that we've shown the site to, especially the nonprofit partners of the county, love it. They love this stuff because it saves them a tremendous amount of time and effort pulling this stuff together for when they need it. And feedback from management, and executive leadership has been very positive as well. The look and feel of the site, the ease of use, all pluses compared to where we were a year ago. And we talked a little bit about this already, but the next steps for us are to keep expanding out the different cross-departmental initiatives, to keep linking back to our open data site for data that can auto-update. That, again, we set it up once and don't have to touch it again. And as Dennis mentioned earlier, we're going through our data call right now, collecting FY15 data, and as that comes in, the site will get updated on a department-by-department basis with that information as well. We did the demo. Socrata?
We do have lots of questions from the audience if you guys are ready.
Bring it.
That's why we're here.
So to start off with, what's the size of the CountyStat team?
You're listening to it. So I guess what we've seen, and we work pretty closely with our like offices in the DC region. We actually have a pretty interesting group called Mid-Atlantic StatNet, which is the stat offices from the district, Montgomery, Prince George's, City of Alexandria, Fairfax County, Baltimore City has come. We've had about 20 different jurisdictions and a number of other interested stakeholders. We meet twice a year. We're pretty on par with a lot of efforts. I think for a county our size, we may be a little small, like on a population basis. But just for total context, when the CountyStat office is fully staffed, it's a CountyStat manager and 4 analysts. That's the way it was designed. We recently had someone depart our office for our OMB office, and so we actually have 2 vacancies at the moment. We're wading through a number of resumes because we are looking to bring someone in. But for again, the population's 1 million, CountyStat office of 5. From what I've seen around the country, that's fairly on par, I think, in terms of numbers. We're a very lean team, but we try to get a lot accomplished with just a few bodies.
Absolutely. So of course this is using a lot of the Socrata platform, but what other tools are you using especially for integration and visualizations?
Take that?
Yeah, so the governments everywhere run on Excel, so that is obviously kind of the default tool that we return to probably more often than we would like. One of the tools that's really kind of changed a lot of the analysis that we do is ArcGIS.com. So this is kind of Esri geospatial tool that they've sort of built their reputation on the desktop version, which has a kind of a big learning curve. But with the online version of that, we found that to be very kind of flexible and powerful and easy for us to pick up. So that's been a good addition to our tool. Then in terms of more sophisticated analysis, usually we'll end up using something like R because it's open source and we don't have to go through our IT department to try to get a license or anything like that. So that's been a big advantage there. And we also have kind of Siebel and Oracle dashboards that the county uses internally, but mostly it's kind of Socrata, ArcGIS for mapping, and then R for the more kind of sophisticated kind of statistical analysis.
Right, with Excel sort of underpinning everything.
Great. I think you touched on this briefly, but how did Montgomery County reach consensus on what the community indicators would be?
So it first started out as a project with the directors of these different regional service centers. So that's where we collected some initial feedback. But right now we're probably only about 33% of the way from kind of where we would like to be. And what we've been doing is kind of presenting, this open performance platform that we have to the broader community and just collecting feedback as we can. And it's been from as many different stakeholders, kind of a very iterative process and just bringing partners on board whenever we can.
As we roll out the site and we demoed it with all of our departments, sometimes they weren't even aware of the indicators because, again, they were so buried in our site. They're like, well, why don't you track this indicator? That's what we really like to look at. So we've kind of even tweaked those a little bit as we built out the site.
Yeah, one of the things we also want to try and get away with a little bit is not to sort of look at, performance management as these kind of products where every year we have some, kind of static thing, but really that these are things that just continuously evolve through conversations and drill downs and all of that. So
another question we have here, what are you using to provide analytics as far as public hits on the site and popular categories?
Like web analytics?
Just Google Analytics. We just kind of monitor that. I looked at it today. We're pretty happy. We have about 4.5-minute session times right now on our site. A good chunk of people go in 2 or 3 pages deep. So some good signs. I don't know if it's just us in the county clicking on it a lot, but
even if it's internal users, there's a lot of value, there as well. If somebody is sitting over at DOT right now, looking at their performance measures, and whether it's to drive a meeting or a discussion or learn something new because they're a new employee, there's a lot of value there. As much value as a resident or an academic or a peer jurisdiction looking at our information. So it's we're happy that it's out there. We're happy that it's accessible. That's what this was really designed to do.
Yeah, and it's something that can be a little bit tricky to benchmark too, because one, there aren't necessarily that many implementations of something like this, and the other thing is, sometimes someone will come just to take a look at the rental survey, for instance, and just be happy with that. Sometimes someone will go to the homepage and be more interested in just looking at, maybe libraries or health and human services. There's so many kind of different applications for this tool that, we see lots of different ways that people are using this site.
Yeah, and Dennis mentioned the community survey. That's actually highlighted on our DHCA's webpage, and it actually drives quite a bit of traffic to our site. Like was a single source, quite a bit of traffic. And every once in a while, something might get picked up on Twitter that we've posted on the site, and that'll drive some traffic for a couple of days.
Yeah, we've historically been more of kind of like an internal supporting department. So, you know, having a lot of this stuff, a lot of the traffic that we do generate, it's more working with departments where, you know, DHCA, for instance, will link to the rental survey that we do, and a lot of the traffic will come from that. So, you know, we're trying to treat this platform as not just our own tool, but something that's really available for any department to make use of.
In reference to that public-facing stuff, have you seen an increase or decrease in your requests for official records?
You know, I'd actually have to ask our public information office that. However, when we started down the road of open data in the county about 2.5 years ago, the very first list of data sets that that the county was going to put online were the most common, what we call MPIA requests. Maryland Public Information Act. So that's more of actually an open data question than a CountyStat question, but that was part of the strategy. Was, you know, we strongly recognize that anytime an information request that regularly comes in every 6 months or 12 months, now somebody in public information doesn't have to go and do a new poll and spend half a day pulling something together for a reporter. It's basically, oh, here's the link. And it's that easy, and that's, you know, part of the beauty of open data.
Yeah, and then when it comes to the performance measures, someone who's sort of, you know, sophisticated enough to be able to put in MPIA requests like that was already able to kind of get the performance information because we've always published it, just more in like PDF formats and stuff like that. So what we do find is that a lot of folks that would traditionally maybe try and figure out how to use the census website to get some demographic information, they're now more and more kind of coming through the resources that we have to answer those questions because we've done a lot of that processing for them already through community dashboards and other analytical work that we've done already.
Okay, and one last question for you guys. It's a bit of a hypothetical, but someone is asking, do you think that the robust open data and ERP platforms are necessary for a site like CountyStat, or could it be pulled directly from state federal data sources online and manual entries?
Well, most of our site, when we created it, was actually pretty much manual. We kind of manually pulled stuff over, so very little of it is automated at this point. The dream is to have more of it automated, but right now it's mostly manually updated. So there's no robust ERP system, though we have one in the county that's feeding these measures right now.
But there's still a human being, likely someone in this room, in between you know, the ERP system and what, or our Siebel system, which is where the 301 data comes in, and what you see on the site.
Yeah, and in terms of collecting data from departments that we then populate on the website, the numerical values are actually not even the major effort there. What we also want to do is give every department every year an opportunity to add some narrative in terms of, you know, why is this number going up or down, what are some kind of constraints that you're facing, and what's your kind of your plan for improvement over the next year and the year after that. So a lot of the data collection that we do is actually qualitative to complement the actual kind of performance numbers, some of which we could pull from an ERP system. But again, it's important for us that the numbers are sort of accompanied with a lot of text-based information that provide a much richer context.
Right, because that ensures that the departments themselves are, you know, they recognize the importance of doing this. They recognize the importance of moving the needle in the right direction, and it gives them a chance to really think through and articulate both internally and externally what their challenges are and opportunities are, and what they think they can do better. And then we, you know, can serve as a mechanism to, you know, go back to that and add a level of accountability.
And in terms of the more kind of geeky behind-the-scenes stuff, we have now kind of integrated our data collection platform with the same tool used by our budget office, so that for the folks in the departments, they can have that one go-to channel, and it's really kind of streamlined a lot of this data collection that we do.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. Why don't you give people the URL again in case they want to check it out themselves?
Yeah, do that.
Perfect. And where can we find you guys on Twitter?
There we go.
Great. We just have some people asking up. So at the CountyStat there, you can, for people who want to further ask questions, please feel free to address them on Twitter and check out their website. Any final remarks, gentlemen?
On the website, there's a link at the top, contact us. You can send an email right to our general inbox too, if that's easier for you.
Yeah, and Dave mentioned that we have this Mid-Atlantic StatNet group, but really any jurisdictions that are trying to work on the same kinds of things that we're working on, we'd love to kind of figure this out together with other folks too. So any interest in collaborating on any of this, we'd be very happy to hear from you as well. And
there has been a lot of value there. I mean, if anybody's interested, that site is mastatnet.org, mastatnet.org, and it'll show you which jurisdictions have participated, the documents from some of the meetings that we've held. We meet twice a year, but wherever you're sitting in the country, if there are other jurisdictions around you that have these kind of offices or these kind of efforts, even if it's a single person sitting in their OMB or similar, executive level office or what have you, banding together to learn from each other and know that you're not, this one voice, that doesn't have any other resources. It's been really good to connect with the folks here that are doing the same kind of work, speak the same language, have the same challenges. A lot of value there. And if you happen to be in the DC area listening and you're not part of this group, you're welcome to join us. Our next meeting is tentatively set for November. You can reach out.
Great. Well, thank you so much to all three of you for coming on and giving us a great tour.
You're welcome.